Hello, this is Chucky, and you're listening to Chucky Radio. Chucky Radio is my opportunity to tell stories, mostly about my life experiences, and a lot of those revolve around travel. In this episode of Chucky Radio, I want to tell one of my most current travel stories. In fact, this is a first trip where I've got on an airplane since we had to lock down back last March. So in this episode, I'll be joined by my partners in crime, Sarah and Jahna, as we tell you about the trip to Hole-bosh. Enjoy. Welcome to Chucky Radio. Okay. Sarah.
Chucky.
What do you think about the new and improved Chucky Media Studios?
I think this ambiance is going to come all the way through to every one of your listeners.
Right?
Nice job. Even incense.
Candles, incense, just relaxing, zen.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of inspired from some experiences I've had in the last couple of months that we won't get into detail about. Jahna.
Chucky.
Jahna got to experience the new Chucky Radio Studio the last time she was here.
I mean, you up your game with all things that you do every time.
We even have like plexiglass between us.
Well, that's because of COVID. Just kidding.
There's so many layers to that.
It actually is here because it was easy to get because of COVID, but my issue was trying to separate sound.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here to talk about our trip to Mexico, this wonderful little island that I have been going to for the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But the genesis of this trip was kind of interesting. So we had originally planned a trip to Cozumel, and we were supposed to try to figure out how we're going to stay at my cousin's place, and then they had some renovations going on, and then everyone kind of bailed. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right. And you had rented your house out for a month.
27 nights I couldn't go home. I didn't have anywhere to go.
Sarah was homeless.
And I was supposed to be on an epic road trip with my ex, but I broke up with him.
The Adventures of Sarah.
The Adventures of Sarah. That's a new series, The Adventures of Sarah, right?
Really?
And so you ended up with one of our good friends, Tracy Lehman.
Who has been on your show before.
She's been on my show.
Our other ride or die, seriously, who would break you out of prison friend.
Absolutely.
And at some point, Tracy and Jahna are going to be on the same trip. And
it'll happen.
It'll
eventually.
be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not even worried.
And so it was funny because I remember you just like bought a one-way ticket and you're like,
I just went to Tracy. It's like running up and touching home base and something that felt like making lemonade out of the situation. And she and I like to write together, and we went to the desert. And
you were like in Joshua Tree and like all these really
sleeping
cool...
on the floor of a trailer in the trailer park in Desert Hot Springs.
So that lasted, what, about 10 days?
Well, yeah. 9 days in California, 7 in the trailer.
And then I get a phone call. Chucky, do you still have that plane ticket to Mexico? And I'm like, I already moved it to January, but what are you thinking?
It's like, I don't know what I'm doing next, and I can't go home, and I just want to go to the beach.
Exactly. And it was just like, because we're similar in that way, like the ocean, the beach, it just, the energy. Jahna, you're the same way. I mean, Jahna's at the beach right now as we speak.
She grew up so much of her life at the beach.
I get to call in this time.
Mm-hmm. She's calling in from San Diego.
Ooh,
Yeah.
fancy. So then you and I said, listen, let's just figure it out and let's go to this island that I've been telling you about for years.
And I had the miles.
And you had the miles, and I'm like, tickets were pretty cheap. And I'll tell you what, it was like taking Southwest Airlines. I was impressed.
They did a great, because these two flights, California and New Mexico in October, were my first flights since February.
This was my first flight since February as well. And I travel for a living. I'm on a plane twice a month. And I was a little reluctant to, get on a flight, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to check it out. And every middle seat was open. Everyone had to wear their mask. I know
we had good masks. We had good protocol. You were the Boy Scout as always with your gloves and sanitizer
I was just glad
and everything.
that you guys went and did it so I could be like, all right, it's cool. And then I went and met you.
So we coordinate. Let's do it. You and I get down. I've got my whole little setup where I've got my buddy who owns a cab company that's going to come get us. And we stayed that first night in Cancun because there's like that little spot that's close to the airport.
Because our flight got in at night.
Yeah, where you got in, like 9 o'clock at night. So we don't want to travel. Because to get to Hole-bosh, okay, and this island, I don't want too many people to know about it because this place is beautiful. And I don't want it to like become the next Tulum. Jinx. And the thing that's so cool about it is, and I think what discourages people to go there is you got to go like 3-hour trip to get there, and you're going into the jungle for an hour, and then you're going up north, and you got to go to a little fishing village, and then you got to take a ferry over, and then there's no cars there, and it's like all dirt roads, and when it rains, everything floods, and there's mud everywhere.
No drainage whatsoever.
Right. So I think the typical tourist, like the cruise boat tourist, might not
Want to go to Hole-bosh.
Want to go to Hole-bosh. So stay away. But I will say that first night, we walked around and we saw some of the stuff that had happened from the hurricane. And we ended up at that great little restaurant that I loved, that I discovered. Yeah, in Cancun. That first night in Cancun. Great little restaurant that sits on a pier over the water, and amazing food.
The protocol was amazing with the COVID precautions.
Yeah, like they made us go to a hand washing station. They checked our temperature
before we even entered the actual restaurant, past the host. We had to go to this hand washing station. Even to get sanitizer, you step on something to dispense it, and then everywhere you step into sanitize, like two things you step into. One has sanitizer, and then one kind of wipes it off. So even the bottoms of your shoes are sanitized.
It's amazing.
Waiters were wearing full shields that night.
Yeah.
Masks off only at the table.
And we
were open air. We didn't go inside anywhere.
Right. And that was the entire trip. I mean, every restaurant, every hotel checked everyone.
Even on the beach, it was like that.
Right? It was awesome. I mean, as far as I know, we
didn't go inside
very
anywhere.
Few cases.
Like even our hallway at our hotels was outdoor.
Right.
That's right.
So that first morning, I ended up waking up early. I don't know. For whatever reason, I just woke up, and because we're on the beach in Cancun, the one thing you see there is you face the sunrise. And man, I haven't seen that in so long, and I have this cool first time I ever done time lapse. And I remember I called you. I made you get up. I'm like, Sarah. Just like San Miguel.
But every time we're traveling and Chucky's like, Sarita, especially when he wakes me up, I'm like, what? And then I know that he's right. And I get up and I go see what it is. And it's magic.
Right? I mean, it was gorgeous. There's like this sun emerging from the ocean. There's like little fishing boats cutting on the water.
So calm and quiet.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Anyway, so that was the nicest part. After that, Cancun, forget about it.
Yeah.
You don't want to stay there any longer. And we get to Hole-bosh, and we are in pouring rain.
And the roads are filled with water.
Well, before we even get
or mud
to the mud, water. But even before we get to the island, and my friend Amy and her friend had joined us, so they actually flew in that morning. And so the four of us, which was pretty funny because my buddy, I told him, I was like, oh, it's 4 of us now. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I'm going to have to send a bigger car.
Mm-hmm. So he's in this huge van. We were styling.
He shows up with a freaking minibus.
Passenger van. Yeah.
Right. Which was the same thing that happened to us in Bali, which was pretty funny. And so anyway, so we're like right in style. But when we get to Chiquila, which is a little fishing village, it is just pouring. We ended up having to get those little bicycle guys to
just to get our luggage to the, like, round the corner half a block to the ferry.
Not even 100 feet.
The rain was
but it
so
would have soaked everything had we not had those guys help us. And then, of course, we get over to Hole-bosh, and, you know, I kind of feel like you didn't get to see the, you know, beautiful, sunny, dry Hole-bosh. Mm-hmm. And, of course, when it hasn't been raining like that, the water's usually more clear. Mm-hmm. But the place is beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. And so we're hanging out there, and I just remember you're like, Jahna needs to be here.
Well, it happened because y'all surprised me at the airport, remember?
Oh, that's right. Oh, I'm going to play that clip.
Okay.
That
so
clip
I tell this part?
is going to get inserted.
Can I tell this part?
Into this right
sweet
now.
Chucky picked me up from the airport at like 11:15 when I decided to shift gears and leave California, and okay, we bought this flight to Cancun like on a Tuesday, and I came back Wednesday night, late at night, and Chucky's like, no, I don't mind, I'll get you from the airport. And then we voted the next morning and got on the plane to Cancun. But you know, we get in the car, and the moment I get in the car, he's like, Sarita, we're going to the beach. And then all of a sudden, Jahna just springs out from under a blanket in the back seat and scares the living daylights out of me.
I've
Like
never
total childhood
seen
prank.
You jump like that.
Jumped.
You screamed and
It's
jumped.
like 11:30 at night on a
awesome.
school night, and Jahna works for the state, and I'm like, "Are you coming to Mexico? Is that why this is happening?" And she's like, "No, I just went to see you." And I'm like, "Are we hanging out tonight?" And I'm like, "Well, you have to come." Like having her there in the car was like, "You have to come." And then
Right.
I convinced Jahna
So
to.
by the time we got to Chucky's place, we did hang out for a little bit, but by the time we got there, she'd already figured out the flight information and everything.
And how
was
I
like,
had
"Wait,
the
what?"
miles. I'm like,
Oh, that's right.
I will use my miles. If you go on this day to that day, you're only missing 5 days of work, and you can work one of those days. Like I'm working her. I'm just like figuring it all out. I will get your flight. Just come. And so
But it took her a few days to decide, right?
it took her a day
A day.
because she had to cover a lot of things and
Right.
get clearance to a lot of things. So
Here's what's so funny about the way we surprised you is, of course, you know, John and I are planning this whole thing. Like, she's going to come with me. Like, how can we surprise Sarah? And that, you know, we're trying to think of different ideas. Like, maybe we'll be in the airport and jump you or something. And she's like, no, let me just get under the blanket in the back seat. I'm like, okay. And so, like, let's come up with a code word of when
you're gonna
jump out. So I said to Jahna, remember this, Jahna? I said, whenever I say, you looking forward to going to Mexico? That was a cue for Jahna to jump out. And so
I was so worried that it might not work and the blanket would get all caught up or something, or I would mess it up. And so that's why I think I did it so abruptly, because I didn't want to accidentally
She's still
mess it up.
reviewing her performance
Right.
because we have audio. She's still critiquing her prank delivery.
I loved what she literally screamed out from the back seat, Arriba! And Sarah almost hit the roof. It was classic.
And we had been recording the whole thing.
Yep.
You recorded it, but then I also recorded it from under the blanket.
Yep.
And,
I'm going to
I
play
was like,
both of
okay,
those
she's coming.
clips.
They're getting in the car. Okay.
Picking up Sarah Sharp. There's a lot of people.
I'm under a blanket right now.
Get under her blanket.
I'm under a
Stay under your
blanket.
blanket. There she is.
She's gonna see my phone under here.
No, I'm going to go past her. You're fine. Sarita!
I feel like such a child right now. I can hear her outside. What am I gonna say? Oh my god, I'm gonna say something so dumb. I hope I don't scare her in a bad way.
All right. So, you excited to go to Mexico?
We're so smart. Fuck! Oh my god! You're scared the shit out of me.
You jumped so much.
Are you coming to Mexico? So it just drove home that you had to be on this impromptu trip. And so Jahna had left 2 days after us on the exact same flight.
Right.
And we got to Hole-bosh on Friday. She got to Hole-bosh on Sunday.
Yeah. And my friend Amy and Angie kind of hung out with us a little bit.
So they
were
overlapped
leaving.
a little.
Yeah. And that was cool. So, well, one of the things I wanted you to do, and Jahna didn't get a chance to see this, and I hadn't gone there and actually seen it myself. I've gone all the way out there, but in Hole-bosh, the migration of the wild flamingos comes through there every year, and they actually stop there to eat, and they eat shrimp, and it's actually where they get the pink color. And so there are like literally hundreds of flamingos, wild flamingos that come through there. And so
they're protected. There's a habitat that's very...
90% of the island is pretty much a protected habitat. And that's why there's no cars allowed, and there's no
big hotels.
It's all boutique hotels. And so I planned that day with the 4 of us that we were going to go have lunch at this great little hotel with a patio, the deck, that overlooks the ocean, and there's all the kiteboarders out there. And then we had to do the trek where you have to walk out into the ocean.
There's sandbar after sandbar after sandbar there.
But there's a main sandbar, which is the one you have to walk, because you can't take the beach because there's a big cut and it's really
mangroves
deep.
And private
Well, it's just
land.
a real deep, it's like a river. So I've done that before I got there, and it's like, oh crap, you'd literally have to swim across a river. But you walk out to this sandbar, and then you take it all the way to where the flamingos migrate, called Mosquito Point.
Well, as close as you can get to the
Right.
flamingos.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a
Where you
point
can
where they
totally
tell you you're not supposed to go any
but you
further.
can totally see them.
Absolutely.
So we
there
brought
was
our
some right
phones
there.
because we wanted to take pictures, but we're holding little purses up in the air the whole time while we trudged through the water. And it was way deeper than we expected. Like the tide was higher. We were just too lazy with our time, and we started later. So it was like an hour each way of first ankle high, then shin high, then by the end thigh high ocean to walk to these flamingos.
And our friend that we'd met down there, super cool, Julie, she had said to me, oh, you guys are going to go out there. Be careful with the stingrays.
We probably saw 200 stingrays.
They were all
they were
over.
from the moment you get on and some of them are little babies.
Yeah, they're little bitty.
I was the only one wearing proper Tiva type shoes, thank heavens, because I'm the only one who stepped on a stingray. But what happened was...
Or rode a stingray.
What happened was on the way back, at first we were like, watch out, we were telling everybody. And then you kind of get used to, you're dragging your feet, you're looking where you're going. But then the water got deeper and deeper, and you couldn't see as well because it's pretty turned up mud right there just from the high winds. It was a super windy, lots of weather weekend.
Right.
And Amy goes, watch out. But this stingray came from behind me. And the moment I put my foot down, it came from behind, right under my foot. I stepped on it, rode it to the full extent of my leg flexibility, and then fell on my ass with my purse and my phone. I'm still trying to save my
And
my
you were
phone.
telling me before, he's like, we really need to get a waterproof
I need
bag.
a
And I'm
Ziploc bag for my phone.
and I'm
just worried about my
no, just
phone.
hold it over our head. You're not going to worry. It'll never get more than waist
I have to be
deep.
careful about my phone.
And then you're the one that eats it riding a stingray. That's Sarita. Should have known. But those flamingos were cool. I mean,
amazing.
Just to
and the
see
stingrays
them.
were amazing.
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a worthwhile experience. And then one of the cool things that happened is, I think it was one of the first nights.
Julie, the picture?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were walking. I'm like, hey, Sarah, let's walk down the beach because there's like a little point there where you can watch the sunset. You got a beautiful view of the sunset. And I remember I'd gotten a little bit ahead of you, and I
was busy
there.
taking pictures and not
Right.
in as much of a hurry as you.
And so I got down there, and I'm just like, the sun is just above the ocean, and the clouds look beautiful. And it's this cool little hotel bar on the beach called Zume. And I'm like taking photos, and it's like, and there's this cool photo because there's these two ladies sitting in chairs, you know, and you can see this gorgeous sun in the horizon. So I'm like taking those photos, and then you show up.
Well, you said I'm at this
that's
bar,
right.
and he sent me this one photo to say, here's where I am, like so that I would recognize where he was. And then we ended up becoming friends with the ladies in that photo, but he didn't know them when he took the picture, and we spent a lot of time with them during that week, the next few days.
Yeah, because at one point, I guess Julie had walked up to the bar, and we were just kind of hanging out there having a drink, and we started talking. All of a sudden, oh, she's American, she's from California, and so of course we immediately bond, and we're talking about. And then at one point, I realized, oh, she was the girl in the photo that I sent you, and I'm like, hey, check this out.
And then Liza, we met later at the what was that bar that we went to often? The late night, beautiful tapas and
but Básico. Yeah.
And Liza was the other person in the photo.
Right.
And we saw her a couple more times after that.
And there was an interesting connection there with Liza, too.
Yeah.
So then Jahna shows up on Sunday. Jahna, what was your impression of getting to Hole-bosh?
And I was just happy, so happy. I'm always just so happy whenever we go places. I feel like I'm the happy camper or something. I just show up, and it was beautiful. It actually partly reminded me of Key West in some ways, and it also reminded me of the Gili Islands in some ways, but it was still Mexico. And I mean, it was different than both of them, but it did remind me of them. I was really happy to be there for sure. And you guys picked a great spot to stay right on the water. It's great. It's perfect.
Jahna showed up, and it all got better.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Our photos got much better.
Well,
that photo she took of us when we jump in the air. That's like classic.
We have to frame it.
That's classic. Yeah.
it's really easy to take photos of y'all, though. I mean, I'm just saying. You make it easy.
She keeps making us famouser.
Yeah, famouser.
The other cool experience, and I guess this was before Jahna showed up, was, and I had done this before, but you'd never done it, is to get massages on the beach.
Yeah.
That was pretty freaking cool.
I had a moment.
You know, I was there.
She was there. She didn't choose to go.
I walked up and down the beach, and then I stayed on the. I laid on the on the little dock right there where we had seen that white heron.
Right.
And just laid in the sun. I was just soaking it up.
So
for sure.
I had a moment with the massages because I've always had that idea of wanting to have a massage at the beach, but I haven't. And you know, it was $25. And it was a really good massage.
Yeah.
And there's this moment where, you know, we talk, among us, we talk a lot about how much your outlook impacts your, you know, way of experiencing life and how your, you know, perspective is everything. And so, you know, you kind of, like law of attraction and whatever. You don't see the world as it is, but we see the world as we are, right?
Right.
And speaking of like making lemonade out of feeling homeless and making a major life shift, like temporarily homeless. This massage was so wonderful, and the sound of the ocean was so wonderful. And then this guitar player was wandering on the beach and
like playing this beautiful,
really,
classical
as a musician,
guitar.
like he was a very good guitar player.
Yeah.
It was exquisite what he was playing. And so I had this moment of like, Sarah, you manifested this. Like, this is your life. This is a result of your outlook. You made all this, like, I mean, you know, If it's all the Matrix, like look where you are in it right now. It was total gratitude, complete gratitude.
I want to stay plugged into this part of the Matrix all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's because, you know, when you get massage, it releases energy and you just feel more connected. And then to have the sound of the ocean right there and
perfect amount of breeze, all of it was just like,
it was beautiful.
I was laughing.
And so the other thing that happened in Hole-bosh, which it's something that's dear to me, and I know you have loved this most of your life, but I've always been a big sailor. I used to race catamarans. And
Sarah, grew up sailing a lot. My dad
up-
had a sailboat, and I used to race little sunfish. And as a kid, I would race in regattas.
Right. And so I just saw the tequila, which is this awesome 36-foot catamaran that I guess they take groups of people out, and I'm just like, I'm going to make that happen.
You wanted Jahna to see the flamingos without having to do the whole trek.
Right.
Too.
That was part of it.
Oh, and I did. It was amazing.
And so I ended up talking to the guys, negotiating a deal, got everything lined up. I'm like, all right, guys.
Girls, come with me. And we're like, what? Chuck, just get up. Just grab your stuff and go. Like, okay, what? Where are we going? Typical. And we used to go out into the water and get out this sailboat.
You're gonna love this. And so we get up.
And we did.
Yeah. Well, what was funny was the first time we went sailing.
The first time we went sailing, it was just us and the crew.
Right.
And
the three of us.
Jahna and I are like face down on the sort of, you know, trampoline looking part of the catamaran,
and I'm back there
teaching these guys how to sail.
Because, you know, just typical Mexico.
They knew how to run the engine.
Right.
They
know how to
sail
put up the sail and make it look like you're sailing. And then if they need to get somewhere, they put down the engine. So I had to like teach these guys the point of sail and like how to tack and how to jibe.
And they were eagerly.
They were
weren't
just
mad.
Sucking
they were
it up.
Yeah.
No, they loved it. Yeah, I wouldn't have been doing it if they didn't want to learn. Yeah. And so we guys are just chilling, sitting on the front trampoline, just loving.
Face down.
And all of a sudden, snap.
It went like, it was such a loud sound. And my instinct growing up sailing, like,
sure the mast broke,
the first thing I did was fly to the very front of the boat before I even looked, like instinct. I heard that sound and my body, before I even knew it, was at the very, very front, like as far from the mast as possible, because the mast broke. I mean, one of the major cables that holds the mast.
The stay. Yeah. And it was one of the stays that really keeps it from bending too much, but it was.
So then, Jahna, how was it? What was the mast doing? You remember?
It was kind of wavering a little bit, and
waving.
It obviously was not tight, and it looked like it. I didn't think it was going to fall, but you were worried about it falling.
I was really worried.
Yeah.
Not worried like I couldn't handle it, but like, no, this is not good.
They were good. And the one thing that I will give those guys 100% credit is the moment that happened, they're like, get the sail down.
Yeah.
Because the sails was going to cause force on the mast, and that's where you could actually have the mast
So
break.
It was just teetering the whole way back, waving back side to side.
Yeah. But once the sail was down, we were totally fine. And then we had to put the engine down. And then, of course, these guys couldn't figure out how to anchor the boat.
Because the wind was so strong.
The wind was really strong.
Goodness.
Which contributed to the cable, although the cable had oxidized and the buckle where it connected. But yeah.
So they would drop the anchor, and it was dragging, and then they were bashing into another ship. And so Chucky had to take over there too, and he's out in the water.
I'm like jump in the water. I'm like helping grab the anchor. It's like, okay, guys, come on.
I mean, and at this point, it's like chest high water, and they're like diving down and like pulling. They'd get really, really far and try to secure it.
I could tell Victor, who was the captain, he knew what he was doing, but the rest of his guys had no clue. So I'm like, I got to get in there and I got to help Victor. This poor guy is
and
just
then
like
these guys
struggling.
came out from the shore. People swam out and started helping because it went on and on.
So I ended up, like, of course, it didn't charge us for it, but I gave all the guys a nice tip because I left a little deposit. I'm like, just give it to the guys. The owner was really cool. And then the next day, I didn't think they'd have the boat ready again.
Yeah.
And
we didn't get very far the first day at all.
We were out for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the next day, of course, they're contacting me, and we took Jahna up to Las Nubes, remember where the kiteboarders
And
were
you and I
at.
did yoga in the morning.
And Julie was there. And the guy kept texting me. He's like, the boat's fixed. Do you guys want to go? So I'm sitting there like, and he's like, we'll cut you a really good deal. And I'm like, okay, shit, let's just do it. So I turned to you guys. It's like, all right, we're going on the boat again.
And it was so nice.
And then we invited Julie this time because I had invited her before, but she was on some tour.
The other side of the
and
island
she didn't make
get
it.
there in time.
And so this time she was right there. And so then it was you three and me, and we finally get the boat and we head out. And now it's like.
Now we're totally blissed because we were really sailing.
Yeah.
And we decided to sail to the north end to where that little bar that you can only get to. That's like so.
Like Punta Coco.
Punta Coco, but I kept calling it Punta Coco.
So yeah, that's the western, kind of almost southwestern end of the
you're
island.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where you see the sunset. And I kind of figured it's like by the time we started and we got out and everything, it's like, let's just go down there. So we'll have some time to hang out at the bar there since we knew the guy who runs the bar.
He kept trying to get us to come.
Right.
This like total end of the island that's impossible to get to unless you take,
You got to take like one of these motorized cart cabs
that can only carry 2 people.
And it was going to charge us like $50 or something to take 2 of them to get there and back.
But he was really selling it hard about you can see the sunset and it's really remote and it's a preserve and
All that.
And
we're like, hey, let's just take a freaking
there.
36-foot catamaran. So we like pull up in the catamaran. I'm showing these guys how to like get in there, and so we walk up to the bar and we're like, hey, what's up?
And he's like, nice
and then
ride.
there's a fire with coconut shells or something, and Sarah's like, I'm a little cold, I'm gonna go warm up by the fire. And I'm like, we're in Mexico. It's only Sarah would go up to the fireplace because she's cold in Mexico.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I get cold easily, but they were burning all the coconuts because the bugs were horrible on that end of the island. That's also because it's just so remote.
Mosquitoes.
But then we were all excited because we saw a lady with her top off, and I was like, I'll take my top off if that lady does.
That's it. Off.
That's it. Tops off, and the rest of it we were like.
Well, it was funny because it was Patrick and the girl from Montreal. And they had been sitting there, and I saw them smoking a little bit. And I'm like, hey, what's up, guys? And so I just made new friends, right? So I'm hanging out talking. And she's, she's from Canada. She's from Montreal. So she's got tits out. Yeah. Natural. The way, I don't know why Americans make it such a big deal. So then you guys come up, and you're like,
there.
Yeah.
There were only like 3 other people there.
And you guys are like, we're inspired. We're going tits out. I'm like, all right, But they were really cool. I mean, they were really nice. And she had some interesting stories and perspectives on things because they had been doing some traveling and they had done some ayahuasca ceremonies. We were talking about that. So at one point, we decide, all right, let's get back on the boat. Let's go cruise. The sun was just starting to get low. And her and the guy. What's that?
That's where I saw the wild flamingos.
Yeah, we saw more wild flamingos over
that's
right before we turned around.
So we were going out to see them.
But before we did that, what was funny is Patrick and the girl, they were out in the water. And we were walking back towards the boat. And I see those guys. I'm like, hey, guys, you guys want to go for a ride? And they're like, look at us, and they look back at the boat. And they're like, you're on that? And we're like, yeah, we just rented that for the afternoon.
It's so Chucky to be like, let's include our new friends. And everything gets better because Chucky's there.
And of course, they're just like, yeah, we'll go with you. And it's so funny because she jumped on the boat. Like, she didn't even go back to the shore. She was just like, I'm gone. And then Patrick went back, and he ended up grabbing our buddy, the bartender guy. And so they came, and that's when we ended up going. And Jahna finally got to see the flamingos.
Yay.
Yay.
I was really happy about that.
That was...
And then the moon, because as we sailed back, the sunset and that moon came up. It was incredible.
It was a crescent moon. It was beautiful.
That's right.
And Sarah and I were just sitting up on the front and actually in front of the little trampoline part, there's that little netting on the very front with these cushions. We just laid across there. You're just right above the water, and the moon is out, and it's sunset. Got tits out. It was great.
And all the ladies had their boobs out at that point. But which is so funny. We talk so much about it because it's just like, yay, we're finally like not in the U.S. at a beach. And it would not have worked in Indonesia.
Probably not.
Not at all. You know.
But at that point, and here's the thing, and this is, and we've got some great photos.
Not of the boobs.
No, not of the boobs. I'm talking about when we were sailing before we put the motor down. Because at one point we got so dark that finally we had to put the motor down because we're going upwind. But we're sailing and the sun had just set, and you're just sitting there just cruising under the power of the wind. And it's just so beautiful, and all you see around you is the silhouettes of the people that you're with. And just hearing that boat cruising across.
And we all went quiet. We weren't talking to each other.
Nobody was talking.
We were all having our
just
moment.
absorbing that moment. It was really neat. In fact, I remember...
Thank you, Chucky.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Now, I just remember, like, even Julie at one point, I got a great photo of her because she's just sitting there and she's just looking back at the sky, and you can kind of see her silhouette, and she's got her headphones listening to probably some great music or something. Just, you could tell she was just so into that moment. And that's one of the beauties about sailboats.
That's next for me.
Yeah.
I mean, being reminded, I could spend the next 5 years just sailing like all around the Caribbean and not care about any other travel.
Right.
That's how much I love it.
No, I'm inspired to get a sailboat again. I mean, I had that one when I was young and used to race, and it was actually my dad's, and he reminded me of that when I moved to California. It's like, that's my boat. You're not taking it to California. I'm like, dang. But now I'm like, I need to get one.
You should do that, Chucky.
I will. It's on the list. Okay, so that was pretty much the last major event in Hole-bosh. And pretty much chill that next day, because we're supposed to go on that big tour, but it got canceled because it was too much wind. And so we decided to leave early on Tuesday because you guys wanted to stay the rest of the time down in Tulum. And so I talked to my guy, and it's like, hey, cut me a deal, drive us to Tulum, and then I would take the car back to Cancun because I had to leave at be at the airport at 6:30 in the morning to leave the next morning. And on the way down...
Can I say one part? We
absolutely.
drove through them. We knew there were, cenotes along the way, and we might want to stop at one, and we drove through the jungle, which was super cool.
Yeah.
But also we were I was in my phone a lot because it's like, okay, we're driving and I'm dealing with things back home and with my Airbnbs and with my children. And then I just happened to look up, and I recognized where I was because I had only been to Tulum once and had taken a day trip from there to the ruins in Koba. Is it Koba or Koba? Anyway.
Don't get me lying.
I look up and I'm like, guys, wait, I know where I am. There are ruins right there. And they're cenotes super close to here. And I don't mind going to the exact same only cenote I've ever been to because I know that y'all will freaking love it. Let's go. And so it was like, just because I happened to look up from my phone. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, one of the things we talked about is like, if there's any cenotes on their way, let's definitely check them out. And then you knew those, and it's like, yeah, done deal. Let's go. And there was 3 to choose from, But you were like,
I
no,
just
guys,
knew, like,
you guys
I know
are
the one
going
I've been to, you
love
will love,
one
and the
that
other ones
I've
are
been
probably
to.
great. But at least it's not like, I wish we'd done the other one, you know?
Right. And so we end up getting tickets, and our driver takes us over to that cenote. And as we were doing our little showers to get ready, there's a tarantula walking across the showers, which is freaking cool.
Chucky makes friends with it, of course.
I was going to try to pick it up until I saw something flare out of its tail end. I'm like, maybe not. But then we go down into that cenote, and of course, Sarah's like, oh, there's a platform here, and you should just jump from it.
Well, because when I went, as you come down, the highest point, the first place of entry is this platform. And I thought the first time I went, this is going to be cold and I'm going to chicken out. So the only way I can do this is to just jump off this platform, because if I don't, I'll be too cold to get in. And so
this platform is 33 feet in the air.
And I did it without any fear at all when I was there the time before, but I got the worst ever ear infection afterwards. And so I always get ear infections from fresh water, but I was like, I'm not dealing with another ear infection. I've jumped this thing before. I will take the pictures. I'm going all the way down with your phone.
So, and I, here in Texas, we have a place we go when we're kids called Possum Kingdom. I don't know if you guys have ever heard. Okay. And when I was a kid, I'd jump off the cliffs there, and those were big cliffs. And I got to this platform, and first of all, we're underground. We're in the belly of the earth. And as you're going down, and you can smell the guano, so sure enough, I end up looking up and there's bats hanging.
Right by your head.
Right by your head.
Right there.
And it's dark except for a couple lights.
Spotlights
that
on the
shine
platform.
down. Yeah. So
I mean, if they didn't provide those spotlights, it would basically pitch black except this one little aperture from the earth where some sunlight comes in.
Right. But from a standpoint of someone who's going to jump off a platform, most of what you're looking down at, you have no idea how far it really is and how deep it really is. And so and Sarah's like, you can do it. Come on, I'll film you, Chucky. I'll film you. And you get out on those rocks and you're like,
getting my butt all scratched up on these horrible rocks and trying so hard not to let your phone drop. So I can't even adjust myself with one hand because I'm protecting your phone with my life.
And I get up to the edge of that platform and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Chucky's like, well, okay, I'm going to go. Oh, wait. I mean, guys have to worry about things whenever they fall. There's a lot to think about. Wait, okay, I'm going to go. Wait. Okay, wait. There's a lot to think about. I got to think about this.
As a guy, I had known that Sarah had jumped from this, not to be, but I was like, if Sarah can do this, I can do this. And then there were some other women that had just left them.
They all said they had jumped.
They said they had jumped. I really don't think they jumped.
I don't know why you feel that way.
That's a tough jump.
I didn't think it was a big deal.
I almost fractured one of my toes.
Your toe.
So at one point, I think I just said, okay, let me jump from the lower platform just to get a feel.
And know what the water's like. And
the depth. Knowing the depth and all that. Because every time I would get to the edge of that platform, my body would not allow me to move any further. I mean, my body was screaming like, what are you doing?
I know that feeling.
It's so weird.
And we weren't overly pushing you. We were encouraging you, but it's no, listen to your body, Chucky.
And so I did the small jump, and then I'm like, okay, let me get back up to the big jump. And I just knew I had to really concentrate. I really had to think about how am I going to land. I know I could hurt myself, take care of the jewels.
Point your toes.
Point your toes if you can. Cover your nose, because that's a big thing.
So many things to think about.
Yeah, you do. And then Sarah's like, okay, recording. Okay, recording. I'm like, shut up.
He's like, Sarah, don't talk again. No sounds from your mouth. I will inform you when to hit record. I'm like, okay, Chucky, however you want to do it.
But somehow I mustered it up and I just freaking,
and I captured it.
And you got it. And we got a cool little video of it. So, and of course, it wasn't there when we got there. But as we were hanging out and swimming,
we were almost done.
And we're almost done. And all of a sudden, this beam of light comes into the cavern.
The sun lined up with the hole.
It was crazy.
I felt like a Mayan.
Right?
It was amazing. I thought it was a spotlight, an artificial light at first.
Right?
And then we realized it
y'all,
was
you
a
said that,
sunbeam.
and I was like, no, guys, look, it's sun. That's sun.
That is sun. And then when you swim and you look up, it's like, whoa, it's the sun beaming through, bursting through the hole
And
into the
piercing
water.
a straight line through the water, turquoise.
To
It was like
the
a
bottom.
beam of light about the circumference of a pizza or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just this one single beam of light just going way down. And I looked at that cenote. It goes down to 115 feet when it's
Yeah.
regular level. Which
And it was higher than
actually when
regular
we were
level.
there.
Right.
Because the stairs were covered, the platform,
Yeah.
the bottom platform was covered.
So, John and I would dive down and then we'd swim up through the light. And then there was that one video of me coming through the surface and the water comes off me in the light.
And it's like a burst.
It's like wild. It's just like everything just glows.
It's light in the shape of a human
And
with
there's,
splashes coming off in the light. It's amazing.
It's the
Crazy.
Matrix.
but also, exactly, you manifested that, you know what. But there was a picture or a video. At some point, the light was hitting the water in the shape of a heart.
Yeah.
I think it's like that in almost every picture, actually.
In almost every, yeah. And
There was a lot of hearts
There was a
on
big
this
old
trip.
heart-shaped hole in the rock next to me where I was
Yep.
getting my button angled while I held your camera.
So the trip pretty much ended with me leaving you guys in Tulum. And
You got a little bit of time in the sand.
I did. And our driver was really cool. And we took him to lunch. And
You
we
saw it
went
on
to-
our little front porch of our cabana.
Yeah, we walked on the beach a little bit. And then I said goodbye. And I was like sad.
Because you were like,
You're
hey,
like, why am I
we got there and you were like, why am I leaving?
And of course, Tulum, it's kind of been messed up a little bit because of all the New Yorkers and all
The
the
fashion
big
and the
money
scene and
people and the scene, and everything's like way overpriced now. But there is something still cool about it.
And
you
we'll
know?
talk about it when we do our one, but we were there when there was hardly anybody there. It's awesome.
so amazing to me? I've never been there. And Sarah goes, well, it's probably not ever going to be like this when you come back. But wow, did I look out being there with y'all at that time. For sure. It was
Can't wait to
amazing.
tell that story. We're going to tell the whole story.
So Sarah, Jahna, just the two of you or somebody
Yeah,
else?
we're going to take over Chucky Radio.
It's going to be the Chucky Radio takeover.
Video takeover. We might have to take it over more than once to tell all of our stuff.
But what a great trip. The trio
Yeah,
again.
thank you guys
Back in the
for
saddle.
making me go because you always know
travel.
what's good for
And
me.
here's the crazy part. We did the Bali trip last year in October. And
We left on the exact same day.
that's right.
We left for Cancun on the exact same day that we left for Bali last year. This was a year ago. Memories of Bali were coming up the whole time we
That's
were
right.
in Mexico.
Yeah, they were. And the stamp in my passport was the exact same stamp that I had because in Bali I met you guys there too, and I met you guys here in Mexico or there in Mexico, and I have the date stamp exactly the same, 1 year apart.
Wow.
Going to see Chucky and Sarah.
So cool.
We're so good at being us.
Right. And here's my thought is this trip is going to be the only trip we're going to get to do for a while.
Yeah.
Because things are getting ugly out there.
And
Yeah,
and luckily, I mean, the travel part went really
It
well.
went really well.
All of us have
just
nobody
barely.
got sick.
I mean, we did it just right
We
again.
did.
And I cut my trip short 2 days because I missed my kids too much because I was going to stay longer. But also, I cut my trip short and then
The
proceeded to
hurricane
miss
hit.
being a direct hit of a hurricane to Tulum. So that worked out.
Exactly where we had swim with turtles in exactly the same spot 2 days earlier is
That's
where
so crazy.
the hurricane hit.
Awesome. All right. To future travels.
Thank you all.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. Thanks for having us,
Awesome.
Chucky.
Thank you for having us, Chucky.
No. Thank you guys for being part of all the awesome adventures. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Chucky Radio. If you enjoyed this episode and are listening to it on one of the major podcast services, I'd really appreciate it if you went and rated this podcast. Chucky Radio Podcast is available on most major podcast services, from Apple Podcast to Google Podcast, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, and many others. Music in the intro and outro by Joseph McDade. Thank you for listening, and peace out.